Did you know that here in the UK, among the top five greatest fears is that of having to make a speech or talking to a group of people? Yes, it's up there with fear of heights, arachnophobia, claustrophobia, and all the rest. Now, chances are, if you're a gamer, at some point in your gaming, especially if you're into RPGs, you're going to find that you have to talk to a group of people. Yes, today on Dragon's Teeth, we're talking about the art of pubic squeaking. Hi there, I'm Rob Point. Thanks for joining me today, where, yes, we're going to look at public speaking. This is going to be a two-part video. In this first part, I'm going to go over some general principles of public speaking. And in the second part, we're going to zoom in a bit more on gaming, particularly RPGs, and how we can improve our communication skills, both as GMs or game masters, but also as players as well. And of course, public speaking in gaming may not just be RPGs. It could be that you're refereeing a game, you're involved in some sort of campaign, you have to present things to other players, and so on. Aside from that, it's just one of those very useful life skills that we may get called upon to use from time to time. So, first of all, I'll just give you a little bit of background about my own experience in public speaking. I've always been fascinated by language. I was very lucky to have been brought up in a house full of books. I learned to read at a very young age and have been an avid reader ever since. And language, particularly the English language, fascinates me. Now, I also grew up in East London, and there's a common stereotype that Cockneys and EastEnders, we all have the gift of the gab. We can sell anything to anyone. We can talk our way out of anything. That is a stereotype. But I will say that the people I grew up around, friends and family, were generally speaking very quick with a retort or a one-liner or a put down or a comment. And that kind of use of language was quite highly thought of. It's very common, for example, when you saw an old mate you've not seen for a while, you start off by telling each other a joke. So there was a lot of language and wordplay. And of course, I was raised with rhyming slang and back slang and even like Polari to some extent as well. All things that are playing with the language. And for me, one of the finest examples of that was a story from Upton Park. I used to go to Upton Park to watch West Ham play football and other things that went on there, of course. And I guess it was in the late 70s. We had a match against Chelsea. Chelsea came to Upton Park, and there was a guy called Sebastian Coe at the time. Some of you may remember. Very famous runner. I think he was 800 meters, and at the time he was just becoming a big name. He went on to become a gold medal Olympian and all the rest of it. Anyway, he's a big Chelsea fan, so he turns up at Upton Park, presumably with his Chelsea scarf on, and tries to get in the home fans' end, probably the North Bank. Now, that's a bit of a daft thing to do anyway at West Ham. But as he went through, the old boy on the turnstile stopped him and said, "Sorry, I can see you're a Chelsea fan. You need to go down to the other end of the ground. That's where the away supporters' entrance is. You have to go out the turnstile, go round the corner of the ground, round the edge there, and you'll find the visitors' entrance." To which the reply came, "But I'm Sebastian Coe." To which the old man responded, "Well, won't take you long to get there then, will it?" So that's, to me, always a classic example of that kind of wit and humour and quickness with words. Now, if we fast forward, well, just a few years really, I joined my first band at 17, and I also seriously took up martial arts at that age as well. Now, if you're in a band, of course, you're a musician, you have to get on stage and play in front of people. Now, granted, I wasn't the singer, I wasn't the front man who takes most of the flak, but even so, you have to have a certain amount of confidence on stage. You're performing. If not, well, certainly some venues I played, the crowd can be like sharks. they'll detect fear, they'll detect nervousness, and they'll respond accordingly. So that was a very good ground, if you like, a very good arena for learning about confidence on stage and being in front of groups of people. With martial arts, of course, I was just a student at first, but to cut a long story short, I ended up running my own school, teaching all over the place, all over the UK and across Europe. And that means, of course, you're dealing directly with people. Could be one to one, could be a small group, could be anything up to a room full of 100 people. And you have to stand before them and present your material and explain it and show them how it's done and all the rest. So I very quickly there got used to communicating with groups of people. Sometimes, of course, they're people you know, so that makes things very easy. Other times you're going in totally cold. So a little while ago, I was invited to do a session with the Bedfordshire Police Firearms Unit on dealing with stress. So for me, that's totally cold. I go into a conference room, there's 30 people there, they don't know me, I don't know them. And just to add to the pressure, I'm there to teach them about how to deal with stress. So, of course, if I come across as being stressed from the start, they're not going to take anything I say seriously. So, as I said, in gaming terms, we might be a referee at a convention, we might be running an RPG at a convention or at the club, could be people that are known to us, it could be a group of strangers. Whatever the case, at some point, it's quite likely we're going to have to stand up and explain or present something to the group. So, what we're going to do today is some general tips for public speaking. And of course, this will work for wedding speeches, job interviews, anything like that as well. And then next time, we'll get into actual details of how it specifically relates to gaming. So we're going to start with preparation, and the very first single most important thing I would say is know your subject. Now, if this is a passion, a hobby, something you're really interested in, then that should be quite easy. I do believe that if you are passionate and knowledgeable about something, you should be able to give at least a 5-minute talk about it pretty much at the drop of a hat. The next thing is to be as relaxed and confident as you can. And the best way we can prepare for this is through breathing. Now, this is a huge subject. It's something we spend a lot of time on in my classes, whether that's for martial arts or health or fitness, whatever it is. It's core and fundamental to everything we do. But I'll just give you a very quick breathing exercise that you can do before any potentially stressful event you're going into. And you just, if you've got the time and space, find somewhere quiet for a couple of minutes and you start to slow your breathing. Keep it relaxed, don't force it, and you go into square breathing. That means you inhale, say for a count of 3, you hold the breath for a count of 3, you exhale for a count of 3, and then you hold the breath for a count of 3. Now, you keep that to a comfortable level. The number is irrelevant, but it should be comfortable. But the important thing is you inhale, hold, exhale, hold at equal lengths in that square shape. One thing this does is it really calms down the nervous system. It will regulate the heartbeat and blood pressure to some extent as well. So, you just get yourself in that nice, calm state, and then you can go and do your speech. Some nerves is natural. Everyone gets it. Even the most experienced performer always gets something. That's a little adrenaline boost or whatever you want to call it going on. That's perfectly fine. But if you find that starts overwhelming you or it gets too strong, then just sit quietly and work into that breathing. The next thing to look at is how we present ourselves and how we speak. We want to be relaxed and confident. When I've been doing martial arts for a couple of years, I drifted into doing some door work. The music wasn't paying very well. I needed some money. So I did some door work in various places. And one of the first things I learned from one of the experienced guys there was if you've got a situation developing, you have to take charge. You have to appear confident, even if you feel terrified inside. And sometimes it was quite scary, then you need to give out this feeling of I'm calm, I'm in control. That generally then spreads out to the people around you. And hopefully that will be enough to sort the situation out to de-escalate things. So even if you're not feeling confident, practice looking confident. Of course, we don't want to be overconfident and cocky. No one likes a smart ass, but calm, relaxed, confident. Just imagine you're chatting with some friends over coffee or something like that. Of course, I should also say that all this is very dependent on the situation and the sort of talk you're giving and the environment and everything else. But nonetheless, these general principles hold across pretty much every situation. We then think about the speed and rhythm of our breathing. When people are nervous, it's not uncommon for them to rush. Or if they've got a lot of information they want to get across, then they try and fill all this detail in, and you go in there, and there's right? Two things. One, of course, we have to get each word out so it's understandable. But secondly, people listening have got to take this information in. If you're rushing all this information out, then it's not going to be going in. And when the information stops going in for whatever reason, people tend to switch off. So keep the rhythm of your speech nice and steady. Of course, you don't want to go too slow either. That can be another side effect of nervousness. Just a nice, natural, comfortable speed. You want to feel comfortable. You want your audience to feel comfortable as well. Alongside that, we can think about the tone or inflection. I'm sure we've all experienced someone giving a talk or a lecture or whatever it is, and they have one of those voices that is very monotone, and the whole talk is delivered in this fashion. Again, whether it's fair or not, as humans, we tend to switch off after a little while. If it becomes a bit of a drone, So the other extreme is, unless the setting calls for it, don't be over dramatic. We're not Brian Blessed. We don't need to shout at the people. We don't need to make dramatic gestures. Just calm, measured, normal conversation. Now we get on to our E words. There's 2 E words I'm going to mention today. And the first one is We'll do this. We'll every now and again drop into putting an in. Maybe it's our brain stops for a little while. We're just thinking of the next thing we're going to say. And it's an interesting thing with speech is where there's a gap, either we often try and fill it or someone else tries to fill it. This is it can be an interrogation technique. If people are questioning someone or you're trying to get information, then you give a gap. You talk to them, then you leave this gap. And quite often other people will fill that gap. So I think that's what the is to some extent. And as I said, we all do it. So don't stress about it. Don't worry about it too much. But just be aware if you are overusing the I have worked with people before on a podcast project particularly who said pretty much every other word. And I used to have to go back and edit a lot of that out, which was a very laborious and boring job. So one piece of advice for this, and in general, once you've done all this, if you want to improve your public speaking, is just film yourself. Read something out of a book, recite a favourite poem or something like that, talk about something, and just notice these things that we're talking about. The rhythm of your speech, the speed of it, whether you're putting in ums and ahs and all the rest of it. Self-monitor, and through doing this, you'll easily be able to improve your communication skills. The other E word is engage. And again, I've seen a couple of cases. Well, let's talk about gaming in particular, of a GM. This is going back quite a few years, by the way, who would do this. So we go into a room and it'd be, you walk into the next room and it's 20 foot square and there's some chairs and tables in the room and there's a goblin and the goblin turns round as you come in and he pulls out a sword and he moves towards you. What are you going to do next? There's no engagement. The information is just being read out flat. So then we go back to our inflection and, how we present that information. But also there's no contact. If you have a group or a room full of people and you don't engage them, then again, you're going to lose them. They're going to drift off. This generally means you make a little bit of eye contact. Again, we don't want to go to the other extreme of pick someone in the front row and stare at them while you speak. I'm talking just to you. Everyone's going to feel uncomfortable. But the usual procedure, or what I do, is you go around the room and you just want to make very quick eye contacts, just a second or two, with pretty much everyone at some point. So it's like you're speaking to the whole group. You're not speaking to yourself. You're not just addressing one person, but you're speaking to everyone. You can even, if you're making a point, you see what I mean, right? Yeah, you get that. That sounds, it sounds sensible, right? So you can start doing that kind of thing. This then makes people feel they're in a conversation, even though they're not allowed to talk back, but it makes them feel part of what you're doing. Now, one downside of that, and I've had this a few times, either when teaching or giving a talk or when playing in the band as well. You could have the whole room engaged, but there's always going to be one person going, they're really not having a good time. And it's very easy to focus in on that person and try and get them involved. My advice is don't, for a couple of reasons. One, if they're not having a good time, they're not having a good time. That's okay. It's all right. Secondly is we have to remember we're all made in different ways. We all have different ways of interacting. We all have different things about how we communicate. With some people, it could be, for example, they're very uncomfortable with eye contact. I have this in my own family, so they won't want to look you in the eye. It doesn't mean they're not engaging. That's just how they are. So we need to respect people's boundaries as well. And of course, we should never put pressure on people to perform in a certain way or whatever. Let people be themselves. Let them develop their own natural ways of communication. And it's better for everyone. So, eye contact, don't overdo it, and don't get upset if someone isn't engaging back. And finally, for today, we'll look at content. As we said, you need to know your subject, you need to know your stuff. When you present it, be concise and precise. I've sat in on lectures where the talker will start talking about one thing, so the subject is, I don't know, the history of buses in London, 1856 to 1910. And he'll start talking. You think, oh yeah, this is what we came for. And they say, oh, that reminds me of a time I was in Huddersfield, and there was this chap, you see, and he had this dog. Now the dog was, and we go off on this tangent. Again, a good public speaker might be able to steer that back, or they might bring that round to some point they're going to make. But quite often it's just rambling. They go off on this tangent, that leads to another tangent, and suddenly we're 3 steps away from our main subject. Again, you're going to lose the audience. Stick to the point, be precise, be concise. Another very important point, I think, that relates to know your subject is don't bullshit. If you don't know, then say so. Again, depends on the situation. In teaching, if someone says, what if this, if I haven't got an answer, I'll say, well, I don't really know. I can get back to you on that. Or you say, well, what do you think? Has anyone here had experience of that? What happened to you? What did you do in that situation? And so on. So you kind of turn it around. It's okay to admit you don't know stuff. I've known in martial arts particularly, you used to get a lot of this. Teachers who, they were some sort of godlike figure almost, and they knew everything. You weren't really allowed to ask questions anyway. But if someone did ask the wrong question, it was very much frowned on. I don't like that approach. If you don't know something, say so. This way, it can actually help you. It's an opportunity to get people in the group involved in working out the answer together. And one more thing you can think about when engaging with people is the use of humour. Depending on the situation. I don't want someone standing up at a funeral and saying, did you hear about the 3 blokes who walked into a pub? Having said that, you never know. Some funerals I've been to have been like that at the request of the deceased, so never say never. I do like to inject a little bit of humour in most cases, but you have to be very careful and very selective. My preference is for the use of really bad puns. So you might come out and say, hi everyone, my name's Rob Poyton, it's great to be here. 3-ton penguin. And everyone goes, 3-ton penguin? And I say, well, you need something to break the ice, right? So a silly little thing like that at the start can help to break the ice. And I find the worst of pun is if you get a good groan, that's often better than getting the laugh. Then you know it's hit home. But you only need to do that once at the start. Don't be tempted if you get a laugh to then say, so anyway, I was walking down the road the other day and launch into your favourite jokes or whatever it is, unless you're very good at that and unless that fits in with the theme of what you're doing. So humour can be useful, but keep it brief. Again, keep it concise, keep it precise, and never use humour to denigrate anyone. That's very important as well, unless it's yourself, because sometimes a little jibe aimed at yourself can help bring the audience over to you as well. As I said before, no one likes a smart ass. There we go then. There's a few tips on general public speaking. As I said, next time we'll focus in on gaming, mostly RPGs, and look at how we can better communicate as referees, as game masters, but also importantly as players as well. I think this is something that is often forgotten with RPGs. Everyone talks about the keeper, the GM, the warden, and what they have to do, but players are often left a little bit sometimes bewildered. Well, how do I role play? How do I speak in a character voice and all the rest of it? So those are some of the things we'll look at next time. Thanks again for joining me today. I hope you found that useful and interesting. Do let me know, of course, any questions you have, any comments. I'd especially love to hear any puns you have. The worse they are, the better, because I do need to restock from time to time. And also any interesting or humorous experiences you've had public speaking as well. It would be great to hear. Thanks to everyone who subscribed to the channel. We're over 500 now, which I'm very happy about. And as I always say, if you want to support small channels such as this and the many other good ones out there, the best thing you can do is just click that subscribe button. Doesn't cost you anything. You don't even have to come back and look, but it really does help channels grow. Okay, that's it for today. I'll see you next time. Take care.